Hi, this is Ambi from Board Game Blitz, and today I'm going to show you how to play Space Alert. This is a cooperative game where you're trying to make sure your spaceship survives for the 10 minutes that it's in space. The actions are played in a real-time action round that lasts 10 minutes, dictated by a soundtrack, and then afterwards you'll resolve everything and see if you've won. Over the course of the action round, different threats, internal and external, will come out at different times, indicated by these cards. You will need to perform various actions to defeat or protect against the threats. For example, if the soundtrack indicates a serious external threat in zone blue at time T2, you will draw a card from this deck, and this enemy will appear here on the second turn. The enemy abilities, movement, attacks, shield, and health are indicated on their cards. For example, this enemy moves 2 spaces at the end of each turn, and whenever it reaches the X space on the track, it will attack the ship for 2 damage. The way you do actions is through these cards. Each card has 2 halves, one for movement and one for action. When you play a card, you choose which side to put on top, and it will program your character to do the specified movement or action. The movements are either moving left toward the red side of the ship, moving right toward the blue side of the ship, or using the gravel lift, which moves you up or down to the floor you are not currently on. If you're already in the red or blue zone and play the red or blue arrow respectively, then you do not move. If the gravel lift is broken or if someone else used it before you that turn, then you still move, but get delayed next turn. The actions are either pushing button A, B, or C, or the Battlebot action. Button A activates the weapon system of whichever station you are on. There are 6 stations in the ship in 3 zones, red, white, and blue. These 3 upper zones have heavy laser cannons. When the weapon is activated here, it will use 1 energy from the reactor in its zone. If there is no energy, the weapon won't fire. These weapons hit the closest enemy in their respective zone for the damage indicated. The pulse cannon also uses 1 energy from here when it is activated. The pulse cannon shoots in all 3 zones, hitting all enemies that are 1 or 2 spaces away from the ship on the movement track. The outer lower laser cannons have their own source of energy, so when they're activated, you just move the yellow cube to the cannon. These cannons hit the closest enemy in the red or blue zone. If multiple people press A in the same zone at the same time for any weapon, the cannon is only activated once. If multiple weapons hit an enemy on the same turn, you sum up the damage and only apply their shields once. Button B is for energy and shields. In the upper levels, pressing B will transfer energy from the lower zone into the shields to its maximum capacity. For example, if I press B here, then I will move 1 block from the bottom to the shields here for a total of 2 shield, since there was already 1 energy in the shield. On the outer lower levels, if you press B, you will take energy from the central reactor into your reactor to maximum capacity. For both shields and reactors, if there isn't enough source energy, all of it will be transferred. In the lower central station, B will use up 1 fuel capsule, and then you'll fill the reactor to maximum capacity with green cubes from the bank. If it is already full, you spend a fuel capsule and don't get any more green cubes. If there are no fuel capsules left, then B does nothing. Button C does different things in each zone. In this zone, Action C will fire a rocket. When a rocket is fired, it won't hit anything that turn, but on the next turn, it will hit the closest enemy that is 1 or 2 spaces away from the ship. Only 1 rocket can be fired per turn, and once the 3 rockets are out, C does nothing. In these 2 zones, Action C will activate the Battlebots. The first person to press C here will start up these Battlebots, and from then on the Battlebots will follow them wherever they go. Also, if you have disabled Battlebots, pressing C in either of these spaces reactivates them. If you already have active Battlebots, or if the Battlebots are gone from the station, C does nothing. If you have active Battlebots, the Battlebots action makes your Battlebots attack an intruder in whatever zone you're currently in. In this section, if you have an active Battlebot squad when you press C, you will launch in the Interceptors and be in space, otherwise you do nothing. The Interceptors attack that turn, hitting all enemies at range 1 from the ship, and while you're in space, threats and delays that affect players on the ship do not affect you. The next turn, you can either use the Battlebot's action to stay in space and attack again, or take no action and you use that turn to return to the top red zone. If you play any other action, you are delayed and return to the ship. In this space, pressing C maintains the computer. This needs to be done once in the first 2 turns of either phase, or everyone gets delayed. Here, C lets you look out the window for points. You get more points if more people look out the window at the same time. There are 3 phases in the game, 1, 2, and 3, which will be announced by the soundtrack. In each phase, you'll get new cards from that section of your board. You can't show your cards to other players, but you can talk about them. These numbers on the board indicate the turns in the game. There will be 12 turns, so you can do up to 12 actions total. When you play actions, you place the cards face down on the specific turn. You can also leave a spot blank if you want to do nothing that turn. For example, if I want to move left on turn 1, then press A on turn 2, I would play this card here with the arrow on top, and this card here with the A on top. You can rearrange the cards you played at any time during that phase. After phase 1 is over, you pick up the phase 2 cards. Then you cannot change any of the cards in the phase 1 section of the board. You can still look at them, but you cannot change them. The same thing happens for the 3rd phase. You can choose to end a phase early if you want, independently of everyone else. Whenever the soundtrack says incoming data, everyone draws 1 card. Whenever you hear data transfer, each player may give one of their cards in their hand to another player. You must complete the transfer before the soundtrack beeps, and it must be transferred hand to hand. When the soundtrack announces that the operation ends, then you cannot place any more cards and you go to the resolution round. During the resolution round, you will resolve all the actions and threats. Each turn, threats can appear, players will perform their actions in player order, starting with the captain and going clockwise. You'll calculate damage, and the threats will activate. Actions always resolve one at a time in player order, so if one person does an action to transfer energy and another person uses that energy, the order is important. In the resolution round, if you realize you misplayed your card, you can say, "Oops, I tripped," do the action you meant to do, and then become delayed next turn. When you're delayed on a turn, either from tripping, using a bad gravel lift, from not maintaining the computer, from playing a non-Battlebots action in the Interceptors, or from a threat's actions, you move any card that was planned that turn to the next turn. If there's a card there, it's moved one over, and so on, until you move a card to an empty space or it's the last turn and it's moved off the board. These are the threat cards, external and internal. External threats appear in one of the three zones, moving toward the ship on the trajectory tracks. Internal threats use the internal trajectory track. Threats move each turn according to the speed shown here. The threats' hit points are here, and these are the attacks that they do when they pass certain spaces on the trajectory tracks. Some threats also have text that affect whether weapons can hit them. When external threats attack the ship, they hit the shields first and then the ship. Internal threats deal damage directly to the ship. When the ship takes damage, these tokens are drawn, which make the ship systems less effective from that point forward. This all happens during the resolution round, so you don't know what damage tokens you'll get when you're planning out your moves. Each zone has 6 damage tiles, and if you ever need to draw a 7th, you all lose. Whenever a threat takes hit points, indicate it with red blocks. When a threat has as many red blocks on it as its hit points, it is destroyed. Give the card to the captain, remove the numbered token from his trajectory board, and remove any tokens for internal threats. There are 2 types of internal threats, malfunctions and intruders. When a system is malfunctioning, the indicated letter action card doesn't do its normal action. Instead, it repairs the system for 1 hit point. If there are multiple malfunctions on the system, then the action repairs the repairable malfunction with the lowest numbered token. The normal actions only happen when there are no malfunctions on that system. For repairing, multiple people can hit the same button on the same turn for more damage. To destroy intruders, Battlebots must be used. When you attack with the Battlebot action, it does 1 hit point to the intruder. If there are multiple intruders in the zone, the Battlebots attacks the one with the lowest numbered token. If the threat has this symbol, it returns fire when you use Battlebots, and the Battlebot squad becomes disabled. Disabled Battlebots still follow you around, but they're lying down and cannot attack. At the beginning of the game, each person will have 1 heroic action, these gold cards. You play the cards the same way as regular cards, but they have better effects, and you cannot pass them in a data transfer. If used for movement, your figure will teleport directly to the highlighted station. If you fire a weapon with the A+1 card, the weapon has 1 extra strength. When you transfer energy with the B+1 card, if you transfer at least 1 block of energy, add an extra block from the bank to the receiving energy system. This can exceed the maximum capacity. If you repair with a B+1, you repair for 2 hit points. When you use the heroic Battlebots action, the Battlebots are not disabled if the intruder returns fire. If you use this in space, the Interceptors attack with 1 extra strength. After you've resolved all your turns, if your ship was destroyed, you lose and don't get a score. If you manage to survive, you win. You get a score according to the difficulty and the point values on the threat cards. Any threats that you survived but did not destroy, which the communications officer has, you get the lower point value for. Threats you destroyed, which the captain has, you get the higher value. You get negative points for each damage done to the ship, each damage done to the most damaged zone, each disabled Battlebot squad, and 2 negative points for each knocked out player. Then add visual confirmation points, marked on the mission steps boards, to get your final score. And that's how you play Space Alert. Click the link for setup, details on the resolution round and threats, playing with fewer players, and campaign mode. Check out our website for more videos, podcasts, and blogs. Thanks for watching Board Game Blitz!